Why do stars light up the night? Seeing the light of stars is like traveling through time. This is because stars are so far away from where we are. They can be hundreds of light years away from our planet. This means that it can take thousands of years for the light emitted from them to reach our eyes. But how does this happen? Light years, a measure of time and distance. First, let's explain the term light year. A light year is a unit of distance, not a unit of time. It describes the distance light travels in a year. Light travels at about 300,000 kilometers per second, which is about 9.46 trillion kilometers in a year. This is the distance light travels in a year. If a star is 500 light years away, that means its light began emitting 500 years ago, and we can only see it 500 years later. In other words, the stars we see in the sky are actually light from the very distant past. This shows that every point of light in the sky is very far away from us, and that there is a huge time difference between us and the real time. Time travel, the lights we see belong to the past. When we look up at the sky at night, we are actually watching the past. For example, if a star is 1,000 light years away, we can actually see the light of that star 1,000 years ago. This star may have exploded 1,000 years ago or is in a very different state now, but we can still see it as it was. In other words, the light of every star we see is actually a record of time. In other words, starlight shows not only distance, but also a slice of time. That's why stars are the oldest sources of light in the sky. This reminds us of how big and old the universe is. Galaxies and galaxy lights. Stars are not only found alone, but also together in galaxies and large galaxies. For example, billions of stars in a giant galaxy like the Milky Way come together to form a giant mass of light. This light reaches our eyes from far away, from the depths of the galaxy. Similarly, the light of a galaxy is light sent years ago. Sometimes seeing the light of a galaxy means watching a much older time of that galaxy. In other words, every light in the sky leaves a trace of the past. This is another beauty that shows us how big the universe is and how deep time is. The life of stars, birth, life and death. The light of stars is actually a record of the life of the star. Every star is born, continues its life and eventually dies. Stars produce energy through nuclear fusion and emit light in the process. This light reveals the energetic processes experienced by the star. However, when a star dies, we understand it only much later by seeing the remaining part of its light. Supernova explosions or stellar collapses reach us through light, but we cannot observe this explosion and process in real time because the light of that explosion was emitted thousands, perhaps millions, of years ago. Light that we cannot see with our eyes. Also, there are not only lights in the sky that we can see with our eyes, but also lights with different wavelengths. For example, lights such as ultraviolet light or infrared light, which we cannot see directly with our eyes. However, these lights help us understand the behavior of galaxies and stars. Astronomers can detect these lights using telescopes and thus continue to explore other aspects of the universe.